So George Mason, when you hear people saying, well, why don't we do this more incrementally? Why don't we do this a little more piecemeal? Why don't we just help the folks that are easiest to help? My answer is the time for reform is now. We have waited long enough. We have waited long enough. And in just a few days, a century-long struggle will culminate in a historic vote. We've had historic votes before. We had a historic vote to put Social Security in. Place to make sure that our elderly did not live out their golden years in poverty. We had a historic vote in civil rights to make sure that everybody was equal under the law. As messy as this process is, as frustrating as this process is, as ugly as this process can be, when we have faced such decisions in our past, this nation. Time and time again, has chosen to extend its promise to more of its people. You know, the naysayers said that Social Security would lead to socialism. But the men and women of Congress stood fast and created that program that lifted millions out of poverty. There were cynics that warned that Medicare would lead to a government takeover of our entire healthcare system. And that it didn't have much support in the polls. But Democrats and Republicans refused to back down. And they made sure that our seniors had the health care that they needed and could have some basic peace of mind. So previous generations, those who came before us, made the decision that our seniors and our poor through Medicaid, should not be forced to go without health care just because they couldn't afford it. Today it falls to this generation to decide whether we will make that same promise to hard-working middle class. Families and small businesses all across America, and to young Americans like yourselves who are just starting out. So here's my bottom line. I know this has been a difficult journey. I know this will be a tough. Vote. I know that everybody is counting votes right now in Washington. But I also remember a quote I saw on a plaque in the White House the other day. It's hanging in the same room where I demanded answers from. Insurance executives and just received a bunch of excuses. And it was a quote from Teddy Roosevelt. The person who first called for healthcare reform, that Republican all those years ago. And it said, aggressively fighting for the right is the noblest sport the world affords. Now, I don't know how passing healthcare will play politically, but I know it's right. Teddy Roosevelt knew it was right. Harry Truman knew that it was right. Ted Kennedy knew it. Was right. And if you believe that it's right, then you've got to help us finish this fight. You've got to stand with me just like you did 3 years ago and make some phone calls and knock on some doors. Talk to your parents, talk to your friends. Do not quit, do not give up, we keep on going. We are going to get this done. We. Are going to make history. We are going to fix healthcare in America with your help. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Barack Obama. Address on signing healthcare reform bill into law. Delivered March 23, 2010, Washington, D. C. Today, after almost a century of trying today, after over a year of debate. Today, after all the votes have been tallied. Health insurance reform becomes law in the United States of America today. It is fitting that Congress passed this historic legislation this week. For as we mark the turning of spring, we also mark a new season in America. In a few moments, when I sign this bill, all of the overheated rhetoric over reform will finally confront the reality of reform. And while the Senate still has a last round of improvements to make on this historic legislation, and these are improvements I'm confident they will make swiftly, the bill I'm signing will set. In motion reforms that generations of Americans have fought for, and marched for, and hungered to see. It will take 4 years to implement fully many of these reforms, because we need to implement them responsibly. We need to get this right. But a host of desperately needed reforms will take effect right away. This year, we'll start offering tax credits to about 4 million small businessmen. And women to help them cover the cost of insurance for their employees. That happens this year. This year, tens of thousands of uninsured Americans with pre-existing conditions. The parents of children who have a pre-existing condition will finally be able to purchase the coverage they need. That happens this year. This year, insurance companies will no longer be able to drop people's coverage when they get sick. They won't be able to place lifetime limits or restrictive annual limits on the amount of care they can receive. This year, all new insurance plans will be required to offer free preventive care. And this year, young adults will be able to stay on their parents. Policies until they're 26 years old. That happens this year. And this year, seniors who fall in the coverage gap known as the donut hole will start getting some help. They'll receive $250 to help pay for prescriptions, and that will, over time, fill in the donut hole. And I want seniors to know, despite what some have said, these reforms will not cut your guaranteed benefits. In fact, under this law, Americans on Medicare will receive free preventive care without co-payments or deductibles. That begins this year. Once this reform is implemented, health insurance exchanges will be created. A competitive marketplace where uninsured people and small businesses will finally be able to purchase affordable, quality insurance. They will be able to be part of a big pool and get the same good deal that members of Congress get. That's what's going to happen under this reform. And when this exchange is up and running, millions of people will get tax breaks to help them afford coverage. Which represents the largest middle-class tax cut for healthcare in history. That's what this reform is about. This legislation will also lower costs for families and for businesses and for the federal government. reducing our deficit by over $1 trillion in the next 2 decades. It is paid for. It is fiscally responsible. And it will help lift a decades-long drag on our economy. That's part of what all of you together worked on and made happen. That our generation is able to succeed in passing this reform is a testament to the persistence. And the character of the American people, who championed this cause. Who mobilized, who organized, who believed that people who love this country can change it. It's also a testament to the historic leadership and uncommon courage of the men and women of the United States Congress. Who've taken their lumps during this difficult debate. Audience member, yes, we did. The president, you know, there are few tougher jobs in politics. Or government than leading one of our legislative chambers. In each chamber, there are men and women who come from different places and face different pressures. Who reach different conclusions about the same things and feel deeply concerned about different things. By necessity, leaders have to speak to those different concerns. It isn't always tidy, it is almost never easy. But perhaps the greatest and most difficult challenge is to cobble together out. Of those differences the sense of common interest and common purpose that's required to advance the dreams of all people, especially in a country as large and diverse as ours. And we are blessed by leaders in each chamber who not only do their jobs very well but who never lost sight of that larger mission. They didn't play for the short term, they didn't play to the polls or to politics. One of the best speakers the House of Representatives has ever had, Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Audience, Nancy. 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 The President, one of the best majority leaders the Senate has ever had, Mr. Harry Reid. To all of the terrific committee chairs, all the members of Congress who did what was difficult. But did what was right, and passed health care reform. Not just this generation of Americans will thank you. But the next generation of Americans will thank you. And of course, this victory was also made possible by the painstaking work of members of this administration. Including our outstanding Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kathleen Sebelius, and one of the unsung heroes of this effort. An extraordinary woman who led the reform effort from the White House, Nancy Andaparle. Where's Nancy? Today, I'm signing this reform bill into law on behalf of my mother. Who argued with insurance companies even as she battled cancer in her final days. I'm signing it for Ryan Smith, who's here today. He runs a small business with 5 employees. He's trying to do the right thing, paying half the cost of coverage for his workers. This bill will help him afford that coverage. I'm signing it for 11-year-old Marcellus Owens, who's also here. Marcellus lost his mom to an illness. And she didn't have insurance and couldn't afford the care that she needed. So in her memory he has told her story across America so that no other children have to go through what his family has experienced.